Bria Maranthus with Mike Fisher. We're at the Star in Frisco, but Mike just came from Oxnard in training camp, and I'm about to head there, so we're kind of two ships passing in the night here. Who was your training camp standout?
The opportunity at safety, because Donovan Wilson goes down with the groin and Izzy goes down with the hamstring. Here comes Marquise Bell, and here comes Wanye Thomas, and it's still early on. But the coaches and their teammates are impressed with their ability to kind of grab the steering wheel and go. Now, Monday is a full pads day. And so that's an opportunity to really see kind of a next level ability of those guys trying to catch up with the veterans. We have to mention also on defense, Mozzie Smith. And the projection on him, of course, was, well, eventually he'll catch up with Jonathan Hawkins. Well, in the first week, he was playing with the ones at times as a nose tackle or a one technique, and every once in a while got snaps with the ones as a three technique, which is the more athletic, get up the field tackle.
Seems like the Cowboys have really nailed their last couple NFL drafts.
There's no question. And they've changed the way they do defensive tackles here. They want wide bodies now. But obviously if you're wide body and athletic, Jonathan Hankins, don't tell him we said this, but you know, he's not the athletic wide body type. He's a run stopping guy, and that's great. Mozzie Smith looks like he might be another thing altogether. And then the wide receivers, and of course, as always, it's the easiest thing in the world, relatively speaking, in the NFL.
To overreact.
We definitely overreact, especially when they're running around, when it's the underwear Olympics. And nobody's hitting the wide receiver, and nobody's wrestling with him, and nobody's checking him. Nobody's rushing. And so wide receivers.
And everyone looks so great in the end zone.
All the wide receivers look so good, and of course, CeeDee Lamb is among those. That's the easy one. But I would say Jalen Tolbert has been very impressive in just looking like a professional football player, which you couldn't really say a year ago. And Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, has talked a lot about how he sits down with Jalen and he looks over his shoulder and he's got a notepad and he's writing things out by hand. Not only with beautiful handwriting, which you may be the last of the beautiful handwriters.
I don't know. I try. Cursive is still tough.
I didn't know anybody even wrote anything anymore besides me. But really intricate and precise notes on what he's seeing and what he's hearing. And I've talked about this before. We all learn differently, but I think it's pretty common to say, I listen to it, I write it down, and then I go do it. That seems like a good formula. So I would say those are good jump outs. Those kids at safety, go get them. Mozzie, no doubt about it. And then Jalen Tolbert has very much the inside track on the number 4 receiver job.
One of the biggest changes for the Cowboys this season is Mike McCarthy calling the plays. Did the offense look any different to you?
You know, it's a change, and yet some of the fundamentals are so the same, whether you're running whatever offense. In fact, I had my conversation with Troy Aikman. Thanks for watching that on CowboysSI.com. And he says, you know, even back in Norv Turner's days when they ran the Cowboys Super Bowl offenses, there were still components of the West Coast offense there. And he said Norv would sit down and watch 49er film and say, well, I'm going to borrow that, and I'm going to borrow that. And so when you look at these coaching trees and these different systems, they do mesh at different times. So I would say to the layman, no. I wouldn't say all of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh, it's a so completely different thing. I would not say that. You know, Dak Prescott still had a tipped interception. That hadn't changed. There's still a quarterback throwing an interception here and there. That hasn't changed. But the Mike McCarthy portion of it is so important. He said the other day, I'm in my element. This is what
That's huge.
I think it is too. And he's not exactly a person he's not exactly a braggart. So I think it's just a critically important thing to understand how smooth that transition is going to be. New offense, but not to some degree, not new terminology, simpler in many ways for everybody, but maybe most of all, simpler for the head coach who's going to be the play caller.
McCarthy and Dak Prescott spending a lot more time together because he is taking over those play calling duties. Now Dak just turned 30. And he was kind of like, oh yeah, it feels weird, you know, like you cross that threshold of 30.
I wouldn't know.
You've 20s, still in his 20s. So yeah, I wonder if there is a little bit of a different sense of urgency with Dak. I know he's also the last Cowboy from his draft class, which also might feel a little strange for him.
You know, they're not robots. And so this is a really good point by you, just to kind of humanize it. When most of us turn 21, 18,
Yeah.
13,
Yeah.
18, 21, 30.
Big milestones.
That those do cause you to take stock
Yes.
in where you're at. I won't even get to 50 and 65 or 100. But so I do think that it's entirely possible that at 30,
Yeah.
he reflects a little bit. And we all know, and many in Cowboy Nation have heard Dak say the same polite, right thing so often that maybe you're a little sick of it. But it is the right, polite thing to say.
Yeah.
To note that I'm trying to be better, and we have a brotherhood, and
Less interceptions.
and less interceptions, and all we care about is the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and the contract to work itself out, and all those things that he says by rote, or seems like he says by rote. That can apply to this too, except 30 is different.
Yeah.
30 is different than 29. And you don't have to be an NFL quarterback to know that. You can just be a couple of schmoes who hang out at the Star or Oxnard.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Do you feel like the Cowboys have enough at running back without Ezekiel Elliott?
Ezekiel Elliott, as we speak, spent the weekend in Boston, Foxborough, with the Patriots. Our sources tell us, by the way, that after he left without a contract, not a workout, by the way, but a meeting, he was taken to dinner by Mac Jones to a place called Moo, with a bunch of O's restaurant. And there may have been, Bailey Zappi may have been there may have been some other guys there, but it was kind of a recruiting hang. Now, there was also tornadoes in Boston.
Oh, wow.
So it's been suggested to me that, well, maybe it was about, hey, hang out and let's see if we can keep you, but maybe it was about, there's no use going to the airport anyway. But the Ezekiel Elliott plan that so many have speculated about as it relates to the Cowboys just isn't in existence. It's just not what they're thinking here. Get the pads on here this week, and let's maybe get through a couple of them.
Yeah.
And let's see how Tony Pollard and company look running inside the tackles and in pass protection and all the rest. What you don't want is to have a different guy for each job. So, okay, Tony Pollard, you're the starting running back, but when it comes time to get the tough yards, Ronald Jones goes in.
Right.
When it's third down and we need a scat back, Deuce,
so
you go
obvious.
in. Then it's too obvious.
Right.
So the ideal thing would be to have one guy who can do it all, and that starts with Tony Pollard. The idea isn't, let's see if Malik Davis can run between the tackles and pass pro. The test, and I don't know if you're going to see it in games, but I want to. If I'm the Cowboys, I want to get comfortable in practice. Can Tony Pollard be that guy? We know that he can carry the load as a running back, who runs. Can he carry the load doing all the things that Ezekiel Elliott did so well with such subtlety in some cases?
Good point. One of the biggest position battles we were excited to see for training camp was that kicker. Any clarity on the kicking situation?
The Monday was designated as the day when they're going to go head to head.
Yeah.
We're going to see them both. The public's going to get to see it both.
Right.
Tristan Vizcaino, of course, was hanging around here for part of last year, kind of behind Brett Maher.
Yeah.
There's things to like about him. Brandon Aubrey, who you've written about at CowboysSI.com, the converted soccer guy, and he played soccer right there.
Yeah.
I think in middle school, I think he dabbled with kicking a football. He may have been but he's not a football player up
he's
until
a new
2 years
football
ago.
player.
Yeah,
Right.
Goes to USFL, cleans
Excels.
up. Chris Bonio, our old friend of the show, goes as the special teams coach last year and helps him get even better.
Yeah.
And so here he comes. But are we closing the book on the possibility of another kicker eventually kicking for the Cowboys in 2023? I think it's too early to say that. I don't know that we haven't seen enough from these two guys to say, oh, definitely that guy, or definitely both guys. We're not there yet.
Okay. Was there any surprises on defense when you were out at training camp?
The Dan Quinn moving piece thing.
Yeah.
And we've discussed it here, but this is the first time that I've heard anybody besides Micah talk about it. And I had a conversation one-on-one with Leighton Vander Esch, and he's like, yeah, it's great that we do that with Micah. It's a big deal. It's very important, but we do it with other guys.
Yeah.
Including me.
Yeah, Leighton is kind of the caller, right? Like he's the one in charge of all the communicating. And
if you remember back to Leighton Vander Esch's rookie year, when there was the comparisons to the Bears, Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
Because he's tall and rangy.
Right.
And Urlacher used to go back, and of course he played safety in college. He'd go back and drop 20 yards into coverage and make an interception. And that was part of the vision for Leighton Vander Esch. And then obviously go up and run, stop. Well, Vander Esch still has that in him.